So, besides primary hypothyroidism, the other causes of hypothyroidism could be secondary hypothyroidism, that is, pituitary is the origin, tertiary, where hypothalamic disorders are responsible, or it could be a TSH receptor defect or resistance to thyroid hormone. Now, coming to causes of hyperthyroidism, either it could be sustained hormone overproduction, that is hyperthyroidism. The causes could be Graves' disease, toxic multinodular goiter, or a toxic adenoma of thyroid, chorionic gonadotropin induced gestational hyperthyroidism, or it could be a TSH secreting pituitary tumor. This was sustained hormone overproduction. There could be transient hormone excess, which you can also call as thyrotoxicosis. The reasons could be autoimmune thyroiditis, viral or post-viral subacute thyroiditis, exogenous thyroid hormone, or we also call it as iatrogenic over replacement. To make it more clear, I'll give you an example. For example, in a patient of hypothyroidism, you treat the patient with levothyroxine and inadvertently you overtreat the patient, so there is excess of hormone in the body, so that could, a hypothyroidism patient could actually manifest with symptoms of hyperthyroidism. Okay. Now coming to the indications for thyroid function test, as I told you, when do you evaluate a patient? When do you clinically suspect a patient having a thyroid disorder? As you must have seen in previous slides that I showed you, those figures, if the patient presents you like that, and of course I told you various signs and symptoms of hyperthyroidism as well as hypothyroidism. And to tell you, in clinics the patient present with the very plethora of symptoms. The symptom signs are extremely variable. So a hypothyroid female may present to you with infertility, menstrual irregularity, or she may present to derma OPD with hair loss, or she may come to medicine OPD with complaint of weight gain and cold intolerance. On the other hand, a hyperthyroid patient may present to you with anxiety, tremors, excessive sweating. So the symptoms and signs can vary a lot. And then when else do you test for thyroid function test, that is TSH, T3 and T4? When you are following up the patient. For example, in a hypothyroid patient, if you treat the patient with levothyroxine, you have to measure serum TSH every 6 months or 3 months, or as and when suitable. So you have to follow up the patient. Likewise, in a hyperthyroid patient, if you give a drug like propylthiouracil, which will block thyroid hormone synthesis and eventually lead to decrease in the hormone level, so you have to follow up there. And screening of congenital hypothyroidism. Nowadays almost every newborn is screened for congenital hypothyroidism, because thyroid hormone dysregulation in first few months of life and first year of life could impact neonates mental development and CNS development hugely. So every newborn on second or third day of life is screened for congenital hypothyroidism. About screening of asymptomatic individuals, it is highly controversial, and excluding newborn screening for congenital hypothyroidism, so far no compelling data show that screening asymptomatic individuals, including pregnant women or the elderly, improves the clinical outcome of the patient. But practically every pregnant female is advised a thyroid function test, because you just cannot afford to have a mother who is hypothyroid, because that would adversely impact the CNS development of the fetus. Now I'll be telling you the suggested algorithm for the laboratory evaluation of thyroid function. It is very important to understand, and once you understand, you will not forget it. I'll tell you step by step, and I'll go very slow for this particular slide, but even if you in one read, if you cannot make it out, just go through it again. It's very important to understand. So lab evaluation is begun with measurement of thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH. If TSH is within the reference interval, thyroid dysfunction generally can be excluded. So I think you can guess from here that TSH is the most important and the first screening test that is done if you are doubting or clinically suspecting a thyroid hormone disorder. We know if TSH is above the reference interval, free T4 should be measured. If free T4 is depressed, the biochemical diagnosis of primary hypothyroidism is established. Now, one important point that I want to emphasize here is measurement of T3 or free T3 provides no essential or additional information when hypothyroidism is a clinical consideration. Furthermore, in primary hypothyroidism, T3 declines later than T4 because elevated TSH concentrations in primary hypothyroidism stimulate T3 production more than T4 production. Now the next scenario, if TSH is elevated and FT4, free T4 is within the reference interval on more than one occasion in an asymptomatic patient, subclinical hypothyroidism is diagnosed. Let me tell you something more about subclinical hypothyroidism here only. The term subclinical hypothyroidism was originally used to describe the patient with a low normal FT4 but a slightly elevated serum TSH levels with values typically between 4 and 15 microinternational units per liter. Other terms for this condition are mild hypothyroidism or early thyroid failure or preclinical hypothyroidism and decreased thyroid reserve. Now another scenario could be elevated TSH and FT4 both are raised, which raise the possibility of central hyperthyroidism or thyroid hormone resistance. So TSH and FT4 both elevated, the diagnosis, there is possibility it could be either central hyperthyroidism or thyroid hormone resistance. Now these two disorders are differentiated clinically. Patients with thyroid hormone resistance usually are euthyroid or at worst mildly hypothyroid. However, those with true hyperthyroidism clinically manifest thyrotoxicosis. Now I want you to take note of one thing here, and that is because of the log linear relationship of TSH to free T4. Free T4 usually is normal as long as TSH is between 0.5 and 10 microinternational units per ml. Now moving further in this algorithm, if TSH is depressed and FT4 is elevated, the biochemical diagnosis of primary hyperthyroidism is established. Although total T3 can be measured at this point and is expected to be greatly elevated, this value should not change the diagnosis or the initial therapy. Now, if TSH is depressed and free T4 is within the reference interval, T3 should be measured in search of T3 toxicosis. total T3 measurements are favored over free T3 measurements because total T3 measurements are both more accurate and less expensive than free T3 measurements. And if TSH is depressed, FT4 is normal, T3 is elevated, the diagnosis of T3 toxicosis is established. Now, if TSH is depressed and both FT4 and T3 are normal on more than one occasion, subclinical hyperthyroidism is diagnosed. I'll repeat, if TSH is depressed and both FT4 and FT3 are normal on more than one occasion, subclinical hyperthyroidism is diagnosed. This assumes that causes of TSH suppression such as high dose glucocorticoids and dopamine have been excluded. Now, if hypothalamic or pituitary disease is suspected, initial testing requires measurement of both TSH and free T4. And free T4 is used to establish the presence of biochemical euthyroid state, hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. When FT4 is low and TSH is low or normal, central hypothyroidism may be present. So this was the algorithm to tell you how you go about a patient where you clinically suspect a thyroid hormone disorder. And I think you can make out from this algorithm that TSH is the most important and first test that should be done if you are getting a thyroid hormone disorder, a thyroid hormone function assessed, and then FT4 should be done. But what we see in clinical practice, they order thyroid function test in one go. I don't know what logic physicians apply here, but certainly this is a waste of resources. So moving to the next slide, there are certain autoantibodies which are present in certain disorders. Like I told you, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is chronic lymphocytic infiltration of thyroid gland, and if not iodine deficiency, it is the most common cause of primary hypothyroidism, 90% of the cases. So, in synthesis of thyroid hormone, we saw that iodide is oxidized or organified to an iodine radical by TPO enzyme, that is thyroperoxidase. TPO catalyzes monoiodination of thyroglobulin tyrosines to monoiodotyrosine, that is MIT, and further diiodination of tyrosine forms DIT, that is diiodotyrosine. After thyroglobulin is iodinated to form MIT and DIT, TPO also catalyzes the coupling reactions to produce T4 and T3. And the other autoantibodies that can be seen in various disorders are antibodies against thyroglobulin. There could be antibodies against thyroid microsomes. Then autoantibodies could also be seen against TSH receptor. So let's see what are these disorders. I'll not go into detail of antibodies because these are not asked at your level, at undergraduate level, but I'll just enumerate. So the diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis is supported by recognition of autoantibodies against TPO and thyroglobulin. 90% of patients with chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis, which is the histologic description of Hashimoto thyroiditis, they have anti-thyroperoxidase antibodies, anti-thyroid microsomal autoantibodies, and or anti-thyroglobulin autoantibodies. And in Graves' disease, which is a state of thyrotoxicosis, usually both TSH receptor stimulatory autoantibodies, TSIs, and TSH receptor binding inhibitory autoantibodies, that is TBII, both are seen. So this was part 1 of the class about thyroid function test. In the subsequent lecture, I'll talk about analytical methods to measure TSH or thyrotropin and thyroid hormones. Thank you.